This is lesson 11, addition and subtraction of one-step equations. So the first three things we have to do is the definitions of an equation, solution, and inverse operation. So the definition of an equation is two mathematical expressions that are equal. A solution is a means of solving a problem. And an inverse operation are opposite. Operations that undo each other. Now, for example, the inverse of addition is subtraction. The inverse of subtraction is addition. The inverse of multiplication is division. And the inverse of division is multiplication. So the first thing that we're going to talk about today is subtraction property of equality. The subtraction property of equality states that two sides of an equation remain equal when you subtract the same number from each side. So the first equation that we are going to solve together is x plus 6 equals 4. Now, when we solve these equations, our goal is to get our letter on one side and a number on the other. And here's how we do that. So the first thing we do is we write our equation down. So we have x plus 6 equals 4. Because we have plus 6 with x, in order to get rid of it, we need to do the inverse or the opposite. So what we are going to do is we are going to subtract 6 from both sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a line down the equal sign, and I am going to subtract 6 from both sides. I'm going to subtract it here and here. So now, on this side, on the left-hand side, these are complete opposites, so they cancel each other out, and the only thing I have left is x. On the right-hand side, I do the math, and I do 4 minus 6, and I get negative 2. So that's my answer. On the right-hand side where I check, the first thing I do is I write the equation down. So I have x plus 6 equals 4. So the first thing I do is I rewrite the equation. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the letter with the number that we are going to check to see if it makes the statement true. So I'm going to replace x with negative 2 and check to see if it makes the statement true. So negative 2 plus 6, we need to see if that equals 4. So the third thing that I'm going to do is do the math. What I mean by that is I'm going to use my calculator, and I'm going to put in my calculator -2 plus 6. And I'm going to put the answer right here, which happens to be 4, and bring down the equals 4. If both sides equal, then my answer checks. If it does not equal, then I have to go back on the left-hand side where my solve is and see what I did wrong. So my next equation that we are going to do is 5 equals b plus 8. Now with this one, it doesn't matter which side the variable is on. You're still going to solve it the same way. So we have -5. Oops, sorry. So we have -5 equals b plus 8. So because plus 8 is with the b, that's the one I want to get rid of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. So again, I'm going to draw my line down where the equal sign is, so I know the difference between the two sides. So I am going to, excuse me. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. So on this side, they're complete opposites, so they're gone. So I only have b left. I'm going to bring down my equal sign. On the left-hand side, I'm going to use my calculator and subtract -5 minus 8, and I get -13. So now, to check my answer, I'm going to rewrite my equation. I'm going to replace b with -13. And I'm going to do the math. I'm going to add -13 plus 8, and I get -5. And I'm going to bring down to make sure that both sides equal, and in this case they do, and my answer checks. Excuse me. So the next thing that we're going to look at is the addition property of equality, and that states that the addition property of equality states that the two sides of an equation remain equal when you add the same number from each side. So for our first example, we have x minus 2 equals 1. So I have x minus 2 equals 1. So again, I'm going to put my line through my equal sign. Oops, sorry. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm looking at x minus 2. So to get rid of that, if I'm looking at the subtraction, the opposite is to add. So I am going to add 2 to both sides. So to add 2 to both sides, on the left-hand side here, these are complete opposites, so I can get rid of them. They're gone. And the only thing I have left is my x. I bring down my equal sign. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to add 1 plus 2. Sorry, guys. For some reason, that just erased it. So I had to put that back. So 1 plus 2 is 3. So that's my answer. So now when I go to check, I rewrite my equation. I replace my number, my variable, with the number that we are checking. So we are checking 3. So 3 minus 2 equals 1. So I put that in my calculator. So 3 minus 2, and that equals 1. And I bring down the equals 1 to make sure that both sides equal, and it does. And therefore, our answer is correct. So our next equation, we have Q Q minus 8 equals negative 9. So when I put my line down the center, I'm going to add 8 to both sides. So now I'm going to add 8 to both sides. So on the left-hand side, they are complete opposites, so I am going to get rid of those, and the only thing I have left is Q. Bring down my equal sign, and then again in my calculator, I'm going to put in negative 9 plus 8, and I get negative 1. On the right-hand side, I have my check, so I am going to say Q minus 8 equals negative 9. I'm going to replace Q with negative 1, and I am going to subtract 8 to see if I get negative 9. So I'm going to put negative 1 minus 8 in my calculator, and I get negative 9, and I'm going to bring down equals negative 9 to make sure both sides equal, and they do, and it checks. The last thing in our lesson, we have a real world context word problem, so we're going to do that. And the question states we have an angelfish that can grow to be 18 inches long. If an angelfish is 10.5 inches longer than a clownfish, how long is a clownfish? Well, the first thing it's asking us is what variable will you use to represent the length of the clownfish? Well, let's use C for clownfish. And we have to, because it's a word problem, we have to have a let statement. So let C represent how long, the clownfish is. Next, we have to write our equation. Well, because we're using the words longer than, the two things have to switch. What I mean by that is our clownfish will be C. Longer than is a plus. And the angelfish is 10.5. So those two numbers have to switch. And the whole thing has to equal 18 inches long. So our equation is going to be C plus 10.5 equals 18. So now we need to solve and check it. So C plus 10.5 equals 18. So here we are going to subtract. Again, bring our line down here. Because this is a plus 10.5, we are going to subtract 10.5 from both sides. On the left-hand side, they're complete opposites, so we can get rid of that. We have just C on the left-hand side. Bring down our equal sign. On the right-hand side, we can do the math in our calculators, and we get 7.5. And that's how long the clownfish is. So when we check our answer, we have our equation, which is x plus 10.5 equals 18. And then we replace x with 7.5. And then we do the math by adding, so we get 18. And we bring down equals 18 to make sure that it checks. So the clownfish is 7.5 inches long. And that ends our lesson.